So this is long form Johnny Pride interview. Go ahead, Johnny. Take it away.
So I guess the whole Sacramento vibe to me was about freedom, and I had always been in school. Hey,
Huh?
When are we going to lunch?
We haven't started yet.
We haven't started yet. Let's do a couple hours.
Okay.
And then go to lunch.
Sounds good.
I'll
Leave here at 11:30ish.
Yeah.
Not the best time.
Yeah.
All right. Got to do this without interrupting.
What's lunch? Actually, that would have been funny for the shoot.
Right? Yep. We'll do this probably for a couple hours. Tomorrow is going to be the big one, but for the interview with the
boys.
Wayland.
Yeah.
But I'm still, I'm bummed that we can't find Curtis.
Well, I know. I was hoping, everybody would be able to get together. Greg's busy, Jim's busy, and Curtis is, probably somewhere in the North Pole, living with the bears, living with the polar bears.
Yeah.
In a big, thick, coat with a fish spear.
Something. Rick.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me in your store today. Can't wait to look around. I'm going to be doing more interviews, obviously, for this documentary. And next week, I'm actually going to be with the feature. And I'm trying to find Curtis Mick. Do you know how I can get a hold of him?
Well, I haven't seen him for a while, but last I heard, he was up on, I think it was Interstate 80 around Truckee, or somewhere between Colfax and Truckee. And he was putting chains on vehicles during the winter. Yeah, he was a chain. He put the chains on because I don't know how to do it. So,
Do you know where I could find Curtis Mick?
Curtis in the features?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bumped into him at McKinley Park. He was a swim coach. I didn't bump into him at a club. It was, hey, you're the coach here. That's awesome.
Well,
I took my daughter to a swim meet, and he was the coach of one of the other teams.
do you think he's still there?
If he is, he's freezing.
I just have one more question. Do you happen to know where I might be able to find Curtis Mick?
I think that was the guy. About 6 months ago, I think my wife hired him to clean the garage. Oh, Curtis Mick from the features.
Yeah.
No.
He's got a sort of a magical quality. I'm not quite sure what it was. I found myself drawn to watching him as much as I did Johnny when I was watching the features.
My question is this. I've been looking for him. Do you know where I could find him?
I was just over on Broadway, and I thought I saw him. He was wearing a long, dark cloak, but I never saw him disappear.
I've been having trouble finding Curtis. Do you know where I could find Curtis Mick?
I think he's outside Carson City, and he bought into the Bunny Ranch after that original owner died. So it's the Bunny Ranch and Cigar Bar. I think that's what he's running these days.
Curtis Mick. Oh, geez. I think the last time I was aware of Curtis, his presence, he was one of the people that was going to wrestle Victor the bear. And I think Victor may have ate him. Or maybe they ran off together. I can't remember which. It's been so long ago. Or maybe he just, decided to go on tour with him.
The one thing that I haven't been able to find, I've not been able to find Curtis Mick. Do you guys even know where I can find Curtis Mick?
That guy.
Hey, isn't he? Oh, you still
Totally.
money.
It's $500.
Yeah.
You what?
He owes me $500, and it's been freaking years. I'm tacking on interest. I'm going big with this thing because I'm not gonna let it go.
So you guys like been writing songs together for a long time, and Johnny, you told me that you could write a song in your head if you wanted, but that back then. But nowadays, how do you usually write your songs?
I move around. I do menial chores and I write songs. I was vacuuming one time, and I wrote 14 verses to a song, and I remember every single word. Every single word.
Whoa, were we expecting anybody?
Not really. My pizza guy.
What? Hey! What the heck?
I was kidnapped. And I'm not making this shit up. I was kidnapped in Mexico. I think we heard something about that. And held for $55,000 ransom. Good grief. For 9.5 months. Well, no wonder we didn't get to bail you out. No way. My sister's the only one that could get a hold of my money to get me out. Oh my gosh, and you're back.
And I thought the other stories were cool.
Well, this one's the truth. This is actually better. We've been looking everywhere for you, man, for months. You wouldn't have found me up in the jungle mountains. You did not look there. And you wouldn't have recognized me either. I was almost dead. I just glad to get out of it alive. By the way, Kurt Spataro wants to talk to you.
Yeah. He says he knows you.
I don't think that guy likes me.
During the 1980s, the music scene in Sacramento was as diverse as it was vibrant and creative. There were a number of clubs that offered up a wide variety of musical acts, ranging from top 40 cover bands to original bands and everything in between. Most of these clubs had what was commonly known as a house band, a band that was popular enough and played frequently enough that they were often showcased every week throughout the year. Between 1982 and 1985, the entire Sacramento region had an unremitting house band of its own. The Features, their relevant yet inventive pop sound, paired with their energetic live show, exemplified and energized the Sacramento club scene. During the years of 1982 through 1985, the Features were literally playing 7 nights a week to packed and enthusiastic houses all over the valley. And here is how it all began.
Sacramento, I still consider to be my hometown, although I live in Atlanta where I grew up now, but I get here as often as I can because it's still a very dear place to me. I spent the 80s and 90s here, which were really formidable years for me. I grew up in Atlanta where in high school I had a band, and music was always a huge part of my life. I started playing guitar at a very young age, and then went to Georgia Southern College, where I was instrumental in starting the college radio station and was entertainment editor of the newspaper. And then I went to the University of Georgia to major in broadcasting, and there I discovered college radio at WOG and had a band, the Waters, that is in a whole lot of books. If you read books about REM, you always read about us because our drummer was Bill Berry. And I was working in radio and in television. I was working for PBS and a local top 40 station where we played what we all called Hell's Jukebox. It was Ambrosia and Exile and things like that. But I got Wanderlust and was offered a job that would take me to Chicago, working with a soap company that would pair up with a food company, and all I would do was just go place to place and represent it. And as soon as somebody said Chicago and I could get out of Atlanta, and I'd never been anywhere, I went, yay, that sounds exciting. So the branch closed about the time that I arrived, and they had nothing to do with me, and I had nothing to do but spend my expense account and my salary at punk clubs and rock clubs and buying up X-Ray Specs records at used record stores. I was buying the Skids and Killing Joke and 999 and the Cramps and all this stuff, and just basically feasting on it. And they were trying to figure out what to do with me. And I, at this point, I bought a new guitar, and I was like, well, I'm just going to start a rock band anyway. So I'll let them, shuffle me around. So all of a sudden, they said to me, how does Sacramento, California sound? And I was like, oh my gosh, California, that was like going to Mars. And, just so exotic and so cool. And so it was a blizzard. It was, I think, December 1979, and I just drove through the snow and kept going until I saw the water. As soon as I got here, I had figured out that I was going to play music because I spent a lot of my time in San Francisco and really was soaking up the San Francisco new wave scene. And I remember always going to Hamburger Mary's, and they had this great playlist with like Paul Collins Beat and Romeo Void and Translator, and all these really, really cool bands. A lot of them which were local, Plimsolls. And I'd sit in Hamburger Mary's, and they always had the window open so you could feel the bay, and it was magical. And I thought, that's it, I'm doing a band. I'm gonna take all 3 chords I know, and I'm gonna manipulate them any way I can, and we're gonna do this. So anyway, I'm living over here at an apartment complex, and Jim Otto was living there, and he had played in a band called Rolls Rock. We start talking, we're listening to power pop records all the time, and we're like, I said, I've got some songs, I've been writing songs, so let's let's make some, little cheap demos. We had a little cassette player that everybody had, one of those things. And he says, I know a guy who's in a country band. His name's Greg Dowdy, he plays bass. So we convinced Greg to come along, and we went to San Francisco and worked with a guy named Mark Shalinas. And he had a 3340 reel-to-reel tape machine, 4-track, and we recorded some songs, one of which was Backwards, but also some songs that you guys know if you know the features in Pride and Peril, like No Rock and Roll Radio, and which I wrote as a diatribe about programming consultants, because when I had been at UOG in Athens, Georgia, there was a kid who did like a religious show on Sunday, and his father was part of Burkhardt Abrams, which was a programming consulting firm, which is sort of taking over. I think they took over 128 stations in the U.S. and they said, well, this punk new wave stuff is not going to fly. You're not going to be playing the Police and U2 and the Pretenders. It's not. We're going to play ZZ Top and Fleetwood Mac and Zeppelin, and that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life, and that's the way it's going to be. And I was like, well, fuck that. And so that's not going to happen. So all of a sudden, it was this feeling of a revolution. We were like, guerrillas. And I think that I didn't realize it at the time, but a lot of people in this town thought the same thing, that we're going to turn the Chinese restaurants and the delis into clubs and do the house parties, and we're going to build a community, and we're going to be unstoppable. And that's kind of what happened, because it still goes on to this day. But at the time, it was the gestation. It was a germ of an idea. So we made a demo and sent it out. And all these, New York Rocker and the Fortnightly College Radio Report and all these, everybody raved about it. And we was like, well, really? We don't really get it. But they loved it. And, we were getting airplay all over the place. They were playing it in clubs and on radio stations. San Francisco started playing it. So we thought, okay, it's a band. And so we're starting to play. We weren't playing gigs. We were playing in Jim Otto's living room. And I was writing more songs. So we went to a house party. I think the Cheaters were playing at the house party, and met Curtis.
All right. Well, hey, now we've got the guys on the couch, so this is awesome.
Yeah, this is the artist in repose,
right?
It takes a lot of trauma to have you write something anymore. yeah. Well, you've got songs now, man.
Yeah.
You got a concept record. We are getting old, but we've got stuff. We certainly have enough material to put something out if we were to actually rehearse and go in a recording studio. And
I need to be kidnapped or a really bad breakup. Right?
Just keeping my bad breakups in the can. I just can sort of keep them in a vault.
Right.
Bring them out when you need them.
But that's when the good stuff happens.
Went through my socially conscious
phase, which I call my period of verbosity.
What does that mean?
That means I wrote too many words for every single song.
Oh. Well, I always found the lyrics the most difficult part. The music was easy, but it was the lyrics, because I didn't want to sound like a 8-year-old or a 13-year-old child.
Yeah. Well, that is difficult.
A little bit of substance.
When those are the parameters.
Well, now that you mention it, right?
Right. Yeah, I find it hard to write my Dua Lipa songs. Oh, jeez. But I can write about hobos downtown. Do you say hobos anymore?
Right?
I'm not sure.
So
I'm not
You
sure
better
either.
check the California police.
I really need to look that up.
having you guys all together here, just go over a little bit of history. How did you meet Curtis? How did Curtis and Waylon? How did it all come together?
Yeah, until we get to the Curtis part. We went to a house party where the Cheaters were playing.
23rd, no, it's a parking lot now for the Baptist Church.
That's what
1209 23rd Street. It just came to me.
Oh my gosh, I would have never remembered
23rd.
Wow.
And that's where we met you.
Yeah.
You were there. Were you playing in the Cheaters?
Yeah.
Curtis is playing in the Cheaters, and we were like, well, it's time to steal a keyboard player. And Curtis and I are talking, and we both like the Sex Pistols and stuff like that. You know, Kurt was basically a guitarist on a keyboard. And and I said, well, you know, let's come over to Jim Otto's house, bring a setup. I think you still had your Fender Rhodes then.
I had my Fender Rhodes with these two awkward Leslie speakers, I believe.
Yeah, you did.
That
And
was
then you
just
brought like an ARP Omni.
a retarded setup. Can I say retarded?
Yes.
We plan on using a lot of antiquated terms.
Yes.
Terms here.
This is not a woke documentary, so
Not-
don't worry.
Curtis used to.
This is how we'll make it all okay. We're all a little retarded.
I'm especially.
Oh man, I'm super
So far there.
retarded.
There you go.
So anyway,
now it's all right.
So we pressed that recording we had done in San Francisco with Mark Shalinas, and it was just three of us. It was just guitar, bass, and drums, and the four of us are on the cover. Curtis is on it, and we're getting all these reviews, and it says, you know, Johnny Pride on guitar and vocals, and Jim Otto, and Greg Dowdy, and Curtis, what keyboards Hillier?
That's funny. That's funny. And then how did
some of those in my garage?
Did you really?
Cleaning out.
I have
found
one.
I found about 12 of them in pristine condition, by the way.
You can sell those on eBay, and people will pay for them.
I'll just get them to you.
Okay.
and then Johnny will sell them on eBay.
I went on eBay and
I saw one on eBay for $49.99. The other one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of the upside side?
Yeah.
Wow. I probably have 20
I
of
didn't
those.
buy it though.
Nah.
Why not? You know, you think if someone goes to the trouble, if someone goes to the trouble to do that, to price it out, it's like, why don't they just say $50? You know, it's not like
$49.99.
$49.99.
Was that free shipping or with shipping?
I believe it was free shipping.
free shipping.
Well, that's generous.
So now, how did then Waylon? Did you guys know these guys before joining, or how did that all happen?
When we got back off the road,
Steel Breeze.
all of my friends said, "Oh, you gotta go out and hear this band," and they were playing at, I think, the Sharwood Pub. I went and saw you guys the first time.
Yeah.
And we struck up a friendship. I mean, the three of us.
Yeah.
You know, by 4 a.m, usually it turned into the Three Stooges.
Three Stooges.
But anyway, I started sitting in with the band, and 6 months later, I joined the band.
Yep.
The word was out that we were going to add a guitar player, and everybody came out of the woodwork. And we pretty much already knew that it was going to be Waylon.
Yeah, it was just
We were already partners in
the only
crime.
fit to go.
Yeah.
Let's get it up. 1, 2, 3, and
songs into it, we were a band. We were the Features. And I think the Features, we decided to be the Features because it kind of looked like the Beatles. Curtis liked it because if we were ever got in the record bins, we'd be right behind Fear. And he loved the band Fear. So, and I read the trades. Cream and all the, Crawdaddy and all these rock magazines, New York Rocker. And, you'd open it up and the first thing you'd see was Features. So I thought, we'll be the Features. And everybody was like, okay, that's great. So we pressed it. We pressed the demo when it came out as the Features. And it was pretty cool. It was like the first time I ever had a record out, and I could barely sing, but everything was kind of punk, and that didn't matter. Alex Chilton was making records, and Chris Stamey was making records. They had great voices, but just sort of tinny and thinny, and I hadn't really become a singer yet, and certainly hadn't become a guitar player yet, but it didn't seem to matter in the genre that we were playing in.
Yeah, but we were pretty solid. We had the same lineup once Waylon joined till the very bitter end.
Yeah.
And
I started throwing garbage cans at each other.
Yeah. So it's been how many years now since the intro to the Features? When did they start?
82.
Wow.
It was 82.
Was it 81?
40, maybe late 81.
42 years.
Late 81. Yeah, 81, I guess. So it's been.
Because I was living at that house in a closet. I rented a closet.
Yes,
house
Curtis was
house party was at.
And then he came out of the closet. And
only to be kidnapped.
So it's been 43 years.
Wow.
43 years.
43 years.
And we're all still living.
That's like twice as many years as the ages we were.
Yeah.
Curdy was the baby of the group.
Yeah.
And I was the elder tribesman.
How about the craziest story, the craziest thing that happened while you guys were together?
That may take a minute.
We're so many different.
He pleads the fifth.
Pleads the fifth.
Well, I think you started a fire once, Waylon.
Oh.
I don't remember that.
Remember that time that we were playing that gig up at the ski lodge and Greg Dowdy super glued all the dishes to the wall? And then we went back the next year. Wiseman booked us, and the place, the unit we had stayed in the year before was boarded up.
Those were fun gigs, though.
Those were really fun gigs. I think one of the wildest things was we were playing the Grand Ballroom in Reno.
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk
No,
about that?
no. It didn't end well.
Waylon, you want to speak to this?
Oh my goodness, Well, it was the next day and nobody had slept. And there was a lot of liquor involved.
But we got paid and I had my money and I lost it in about 10 minutes on blackjack.
Oh no.
And then I had no sleep and probably other things going on.
And then what did you do? Because you lost all your
I
money?
said, please give me my money back. I really need it.
Standing on the roulette table.
Blackjack table. Blackjack table. Please give me my money back. I need to pay my rent in Sacramento. I can't believe I lost it all that fast. And I said, you gotta give me my money back. And I jumped up on the table and they tried to get me out.
And he would have taken you to jail right then and there, except for that about then Waylon fell off a bar stool for about the third time. And I remember that Vicky O and I were just sitting on the floor.
You're sitting on the floor, yeah.
Right next to a table full of really old people who are gambling. And
that's us now.
That's us now. And a really nice, sort of timid officer came and said, could you guys please take all this to another casino because you're kind of scaring people. We went, sure, we'd be glad to, but we didn't. We didn't at all.
No,
so what happened?
I just got to ask, did you get the money back?
I did not get the money back, and I wouldn't leave until I got it back, and so they kind of just took me out in cuffs.
Yeah. And then I said,
Johnny goes, well, if he's going, I'm going too.
Probably with words like fascist.
Yelling fascist pigs and Attica. And so that happened. But this is still home. I'm looking out
the window and I'm seeing that beautiful California sky, and knowing that the ocean is 90 minutes away and that the rivers are right there and there. And I don't think, and it's a changed place. There's a line in a song that I wrote about Sacramento called Crazy River, and it's about that tumultuous tidal wave that we voluntarily got aboard and loved and thrived and washed ourselves in the 80s, and then, you know, how crazy it was and how crazy it became. And it says it's a different place, but I never forgot how the sanest of men may inherit the wind, but the rebel souls will fly. The rebel souls will fly. Rebel souls are still here. We've all have families and jobs and things like that. And there's probably still some anarchy out there. It was amazing when the band started springing up, the club started springing up. And I think people started talking to each other about booking. I know that Can't Tell Productions was a booking entity before there was a club called Club Can't Tell. So when we started, we were doing Fat Fonzie's a lot. Lauren Monroe owned a deli, and that turned into a scene. He and Chuck, you know, were doing that. They eventually bought Bitter Creek Tavern, that was owned by Russ Martinez, and had a great bartender, Whit Witowski, who was legendary. He was just a force of nature himself. But we played there a lot, and then it became Spanky's when Lauren and Chuck took over it, and we played there all the time. But once it became Spanky's, Spanky started booking a lot of bigger acts too. I remember Peter Case playing there and stuff like that. But then it was, Lord Beaverbrooks was a fern bar that turned into one of the biggest clubs in town. And we were kind of the house band. Joe Flores was one of the doctors that owned it and decided to make it a club. Marshawn Hukanu, one of my, still to this day, one of my closest friends, she had a huge hand in that. Jim Swigert, who you guys know from the N-Men movie, he was making all the flyers and the booking. He would make a flyer, I guess, or a piece that would be in the papers about these are the bands playing. The calendars. He was doing calendars. And so anyway, that was a big club we would play. We'd play the Rock Factory, Sound Factory, Entertainment Factory, El Dorado Saloon. I remember one night we were playing the El Dorado Saloon. We were headlining a gig, and I had on parachute pants for some reason. I guess because of the 80s, and I just didn't know better. And my zipper slid down and stayed and would not come up. And it was just stuck. And and I ended up putting the microphone, standing behind Greg's bass amp, and putting the microphone on the top of the bass amp and singing in the microphone while I was trying to get my zipper up. And everybody was like, "What the hell is he doing back there?" And I was behind the bass amp with my hand doing this while I'm singing into the microphone. Everybody like, I don't know, what the shtick is, but it's entertaining. These guys have got. But if you look on the back of Upside Side, and all these people, we had a song called Swing Right, and everybody would come on stage as soon as you heard dun. when they did it, El Dorado, Greg Savelin took a shot of it. And that's the back album cover, and it was shot at the El Dorado Saloon. There was a disco called Galactica 2000 that was one of my favorite places to play. It's where I met Dave Perry, who had been in RC Boys. He was there taking pictures, and I was like, who's this guy who's always around? And he ended up actually becoming very instrumental in getting me involved in the scene and saving my life a few times and actually getting me the gigs. Galactica 2000 was a place that you could play, and the press would come and they'd write nice things about you. And I think, we opened for Oingo Boingo there, SVT, tons of bands. So I think that that's another place that gave a lot of local bands exposure, because we would be opening for larger bands that played there. I know China Wagon down the street was doing punk bands. The Coops didn't have a booker. It was just, it was just a blown out place that anybody could go play. When it would be like, hey, Mod Philo, RC Boys and Rebel Truth would be playing the Coops. Come on out. We played the Coops a few times. I think I might have actually sat in with Sean's band and your band, Rhythm School, one night there on percussion. And I think I had too many beers to really be a very valuable addition to the band that evening, because I remember Sean looking at me, take it easy, dude. And clubs and more clubs. We played Cal Expo a bunch of times. We played with the Tubes. We played, some big shows there. We used to do nooners at UC State, UC Sacramento State. At Sacramento State University, we did lots of nooners there, and they always put us in the paper and raved it up real big. I never will forget this one time.
How did you get Curtis Mick?
Well, late 81, early 82, we would take any gig we could get.
Anything.
It was practice. And so we were playing in front of
kids
one afternoon at 11 o'clock in the morning. And afterwards, they all run up like we're rock stars, and we're sign my autographs. So it got so tiring and annoying. Just started signing anything.
Whatever we were signing would come past you, and you'd add to it. And I started saying Curtis McCartney, Curtis Jagger, Curtis Lennon, and then we came through and just said Curtis Mick. Curtis Mick, and he has forever been Curtis Mick.
There you go. It just stuck. It stuck.
It was appropriate,
like a bad piece of gum.
You look at Curtis and go, oh, he's totally Curtis Mick. This is Curtis Mick. That's good. But we used to play these nooners at Sac State, which were popular, and they would write us up in the paper, so that was all good. And there was a little parking lot right across from the Quad and the Student Union, that it was one of those outdoor places where you would have to put some money in it or whatever, and then the arm would go up and it would let you in. And we were in Curtis's, it was like a minivan or a bus.
I had a VW bus at that time.
A VW bus, so it was tall, it was really high. And, Kurt's driving, and a car is in front of us, and they go in and the arm comes up, and Curtis guns it. He's just like, screw it, I'm going in.
I don't have any money.
I didn't have any money. And we needed to park, unload our stuff. And the arm comes down on top of the bus, snaps in half. And we were like, uh-oh, this can't be good. So we get out of the bus and we're looking back, and the arm, half of the arm is just going just like this. And we grabbed our gear and we're walking up to the Quad, just looking back, and it still is, as it goes in the distance, it's still just going like this.
Just act natural, man. It'll go away.
Yeah. Just ignore it,
And then you didn't see it at all.
Yeah, I wonder how that happened.
I don't know.
That's right.
So this might have something to do with why eventually we weren't a band anymore.
I don't remember any of that really.
Luckily we all remember it. Anything we remember.
I know I was sad for a long time. I ended up going to Europe for like 3 months with Jeff Kostakis.
Yeah, and I wound up going to England too. I went to Europe and came back.
I was depressed. I remember.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, me neither.
None of us knew what to do. All we had was each other for so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
For so long. I mean, just a merry band of pranksters, you know, and ne'er-do-wells.
Ne'er-do-wells indeed.
I put my electric guitar away and just played classical guitar for a couple of years.
So you
Johnny
grew
came
up.
back.
Wow. So you grew up.
Kind of.
Yeah, Curtis and I were
It
lost.
didn't go well. Johnny came back to town and said, "Hey, let's go make a record." And I was like, "Okay."
At this point, I just had a ton of songs because I had been writing the whole time in England and all this stuff. So I came back, I had a bunch of songs. I was like, you know, we'll go over to Greg's house because he's got a 4-track and we'll just do some demos. And
Yeah. So then was that the incubus of Pride and Peril? Then,
It
right?
was. I went down to Venice and I found this guy, Ethan James, who had a little studio, and he was doing demos for like the Bangles and L7 and Jane's Addiction and all those people. And he goes, "God, this is really good. We could do something with this." And we made some demos. And that led to a management deal with Live Management, and then we played some shows, and then Greg's sound company took off, so we got another bass player and all that, and then so that was Pride and Peril 2.0, and then when Waylon and I came back to Sacramento, Curtis joins the fold again, and that was Pride and Peril 3.0.
Yeah, with the Steel Breeze drummer and bass player.
Yeah, so it was the three of us back together again,
right?
With just a different rhythm section, but we knew those guys anyway.
Yeah. I think I was playing with Tattoo Love Dogs at that point, like the very first incarnation.
Mike,
and then I kind of left them to go play with these guys.
So it got to the point to where we needed a full-time bass player, and this kid shows up, Dan Rothschild, and he could just play the hell out of the bass, and he loved our music. He had heard demo tapes, and he said, "Yeah, this is the band I want to be in." And now he plays, with everybody from, Hart and Sheryl Crow to he does stuff with Cheap Trick. He's plays with Beck, plays with Fiona Apple, Jacob Dylan, you name it. His dad was Paul Rothschild, who I didn't know who Paul was, but it turns out Paul, produced the Doors records and all that stuff. So he was a go-to guy when Oliver Stone decided to do a movie about the Doors and hired an actor named Val Kilmer to play Jim Morrison. And so Dan and I, and Paul had a place that Dan lives in now because Paul passed away, but Paul had a house up in Laurel Canyon, which was where Val was renting a house. So Dan and I went up Laurel Canyon to Paul's house to get a bass amp, pick up a bass amp, and Paul was sitting there with Val Kilmer. Now I had never seen Top Gun. I only knew Val Kilmer from Real Genius. I knew that he had recently put out a movie that Ron Howard had directed called Willow. It was a fantasy thing, and so he's sitting there with a bourbon bottle or a Jim Beam bottle or something that was full of iced tea because Val is not a drinker. And so Paul Rothschild said, "Oh, JP, this is Val Kilmer." I said, "Oh yeah, I know you from Real Genius." And Paul said, "Well, he's got this new movie called, he's going to be Jim Morrison, and he's got this new movie called Willow." And I said, "Oh, I think my girlfriend's watching that right now at home." And Val looks right at me and he goes, "Is she 12? We started bantering and sparring back and forth, just throwing it at each other and laughing our butts off. And he called me the next day and he said, "You want to go to work with me? I need somebody." So I was basically a personal assistant, but we did a lot of rock and roll stuff too. So guy you guys know in Sacramento from the blues scene named Bo Ely knew someone at Entertainment Tonight, and they wound up thinking that the story of me working with Val Kilmer and having a band that was making a record would be a good story for the show.
An up-and-coming rock band is getting its big break in a new movie, but the group is paying a price for fame. It involves autographing the occasional overripe tomato. You may never have heard of Pride and Peril, but the music of this Northern California club band can now be heard in theaters everywhere. The group has a cameo role in Oliver Stone's 60s movie The Doors, playing a warm-up act the audience could do without. Their brief appearance on screen finds the boys being pelted with produce by the disgruntled crowd, and the band says that's mostly what they're remembered for.
We only get recognized in grocery stores when we stand near the produce section, because when we were playing in the film, there's 4,000 people throwing fruit and produce at us. So if we get near the fruit, especially if it's sort of rotten fruit, we get near the bad stuff. Are you those guys?
The movie stars Val Kilmer as rock and roll giant Jim Morrison. Kilmer got added insight into the music world by striking up a friendship with Pride and Peril member Johnny Pride, whom he quizzed about the do's and don'ts of being a rock singer.
Forget Bob Dylan, Pride and Peril. Johnny Pride, sure, he's great.
Val used to go to work every morning and he'd say, "Okay, John, I'm going to work. I'm going to go pretend to be what you are in real life."
He was fantastic. Yeah, he's got the energy too that's part of the joy, stuff that's coming back into music, I think, that makes him unique.
He's very respectful of music in general and ours in particular.
The boys in the band admit they hope their 60s flashback will open some doors for them. They're ready to break on through to musical stardom. Pride and Peril has a new album coming out this spring. They're also planning a concert tour. Tough business. Good luck.
And that was Pride and Peril, so spoken, because I was taking our demos down to LA and I didn't have a place to live or a place to stay. So I'd kind of walk the streets at night or go into all-night diners and write. And it was never safe. And I was always trying to figure out how to get there and get back. So Johnny Pride was in peril all the time. And then when we all went down there, the whole band was in peril. And so it was a play also on, pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. And that if your pride is constantly in peril, then you do more to try to maybe prop it up, have more proud moments or more moments that you think are worthwhile. So it was a little bit of a motto for us also. But that turned out to be a lot of fun. We, did some movies and we put out a couple records and eventually came back to Sacramento and made another record and played some more gigs. And then I went to Atlanta and became a school teacher for 17 years, but we kept coming back and doing reunion shows. And I think part of what Kirk wants to talk about in this video is the transaction from 1980 to what happened afterwards when the Cattle Club became a big club and things turned into the 90s, and then subsequently where we all are now. Right now we're at Sean O'Callahan's place, and of course you guys know Sean from Rhythm School, and so all of us, we still know each other. We still get together and do reunion shows.
So I came into town yesterday, and Waylon and I had not seen each other for a while. And if you have known us and Curtis for any time at all, you know what that means. It means that we're lucky to be here today.
It means the divorce is now final.
Yeah, so Waylon needs a place to live. But we did have fun. We stayed up late, and we sang a bunch, and we played a lot. And that's all I'm going to say about what we did. Nothing to be worried about.
Seems I knew just what to do. I picked her up after work at 2:30. Seems I knew just where to take her to a party to from the street until the song started. Now I'm in trouble again, for trouble and I can't relate. I don't know if it was a saving trick. So I went to New York, staked in Macy, up and
So the features were super ultra talented, great songwriting, great front. You know, Curtis and Johnny both doing vocals, and the rhythm section was really good, but they were missing something. And I wanted to do with the features what I did with Steel Breeze, but much bigger, because I felt that they really had a longer runway to go, songwriting-wise. But they were missing one ingredient, and that was Waylon Carpenter. Waylon, I mean, look, I've been doing this now. I'm 66 this year, and I've done everybody on planet Earth. You know, I've just been really blessed in what I've been doing. I've never seen anybody play the way this guy has played to this fucking day, to this day. And I knew that he could be the spark that would change their trajectory and help them out. Again, like I said earlier, it's a very difficult business. It is the music business, and that's the fucking shitty part about it, right? But you know, I stood back, and as a manager and a guy that was kind of getting a little bit more savvy on what the industry was looking for, and they needed Waylon, and Waylon needed them. So I went after Waylon to talk him into joining the features, and we were successful with that.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was ready for the move. I saw the handwriting on the wall with Steel Breeze.
Waylon and I always got along really well.
Yeah.
We always treat each other with respect.
Well, and what, it's 40 some odd years later, and look where we are.
Yeah, back
everybody's
at the
still
pizza joint.
right. What was the story you told yesterday? You went from
I went from Fat Fonzie's to Madison Square Gardens, back to Fat Fonzie's in 6 months.
Pretty cool. Yeah. Hey guys, I just was wondering, how are the royalties coming from all of the stuff that you guys did?
0.
Huh?
They should change the name of royalties to like liabilities or something like that. Last 2 checks I got from the Doors movie, 50 cents and 13 cents.
The paper costs more.
Right? How about you, Waylon?
The last check I got was for less than $5, and the previous one I just have hanging on my wall, it was for like $3.47.
The ink it took to write on it costs more than what
the
they...
paper they use on those checks is really nice.
Hey, but you know what?
Very nice. And they're very frameable. You know,
They are.
They're
Just a fridge bag.
It's kind of like I did jury duty, and I was there all day long, and they mailed me a check a month later for $15 for the jury duty.
We're getting more of a jury duty than playing rock and roll.
I did not cash it.
It's a sad truth.
It adorns.
It's a setup.
Yeah.
It's a racket.
Well, I think it's.
But hey, you know what?
It's comic relief.
You guys are still together. You're still friends. We're still making music. We're still having fun, right?
And 13 cents richer.
And 13 cents richer. Boom! What are you doing, Johnny?
Writing a song. What do you think I'm doing? I think I got something. Oh, yeah.